Welcome back to Mile High Hoops. It's been a hot minute, but I'll explain what's been going on at the end if you care to stick around for that. But the NBA trade deadline is coming up soon, and the Lakers did just make a trade for Rui Hachimura, which I think is a great trade for the Lakers, not so much for the Wizards. But that's not what this video is about. Really want to talk about kind of what the next trade might be and what kind of players to look out for. I'm going to start though by going over players that I think are obvious that will probably be moved, and if not, they're going to be one of those players that just like their contract just dies out with the team or whatever they end up doing. But players that I think should be traded, and so I've got them all here. That's John Collins. He's been in the news a bunch. Pretty much all of the Hornets. So Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre Jr., P.J. Washington, and Mason Plumlee. The more interesting guys here, I think, are P.J. Washington and Mason Plumlee. So I think a lot of teams could use Mason Plumlee. Like, he'd be one of the better backup centers in the league. I think the asking price wouldn't be too much, and it'd be good. So P.J. Washington is fitting the same bill of guys like Rui, where teams have gotten to the point where they don't really want to re-sign this guy and extend them when they're coming off these rookie deals. And so teams could probably get them for pretty cheap if they do intend to re-sign them. So I think he's going to be an interesting person to look forward to probably being moved. Next, the Bulls, I have a question mark next to them because it's like, what direction do they go? Do they try to tank at this point, or do they try to go with the fringes and like try to trade some pieces to get better? The guy that I have is like a kind of not so interesting to talk about is Zach LaVine. I mean, it's going to be him and DeMar DeRozan that are in talks about like if they're going on the tank route to get rid of those guys, which I don't assume they would do because they're the Bulls. Of course, Bojan Bogdanovic. I've beaten a dead horse over and over about him. Eric Gordon, same thing. Last year of his deal, though, and he's on a bad team. Good vet. Obvious. Pacers are looking good, but Buddy Hield, why not get value out of him right now while you can? With the Magic, it's Terrence Ross, Gary Harris, just two older guys that probably will. Actually, Gary Harris is still fairly young, but not so much. He's had injuries and stuff, which haven't helped. But Terrence Ross has been on this team for way too long and needs to be moved. And then Spurs guys like Jakob Poeltl, Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, all guys that could help like winning teams right now that the Spurs should get some value out of while they can. We got a bunch of question marks next to the Raptors as well because they're in the same position as the Bulls of what in the hell do we do? Like, do we try to get better or do we try to get maybe worse for this year and then look towards like the next 2 years or something? Guys, as far as that I think could be moved that might be a little bit more interesting, a lot of these guys are like around the same level as like this Rui Hachimura deal. And I think that these are important because I think these are what's going to happen the most this year. And I think that Lakers trade is really like setting the table. So it's going to be a lot of these guys in the 2019 draft class that need an extension, like I was saying earlier. So my next guy here is Cameron Reddish. Again, I mean, he's got traded already to the Knicks. I think that was last year. But he's been in talks a whole bunch. And some of these pretty good teams that need a wing, Cam Reddish has shown that he's a pretty decent defender and a pretty good shooter. Why not see if you can trade like second-round picks like Lakers did to get this guy that you could maybe re-sign for like $10 or $15 million when this new like CBA comes in where the salary cap is higher. So why not take that flyer? Same thing here, Jackson Hayes. Pelicans, if they can maybe swap him out for someone like Jakob Poeltl or something and dish out maybe a couple like second-round draft picks. Be a great upgrade for the Pelicans, and they want to win now. Spurs don't give a shit about winning now. Next guy here. So back to the Bulls. So on the other side of the spectrum, as DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, I could very well see them dishing out Patrick Williams or Kobe White. Kobe White has just like been like good one day and then kind of shit the next day. I don't know. I don't love his game that much. But Patrick Williams, I think Patrick Williams' value is actually pretty good. He's shown a lot of flashes, and I think he's one of these guys, like, if the Bulls did move him for like a vet on one of these younger kind of bad teams, I feel like he could flourish on a new team where he is more of a focal point, because he is. It could be a Lowry Markkanen on the Bulls situation where he is like potentially much better than he is, and like maybe not like as big of a jump as Lowry took, of course, but like could very well be a much better player than he is showing to be, because he's not really getting a whole lot of touches. Zach LaVine and DeMar are just dominating the ball. Give him put him in a situation where he can actually maybe handle pick and rolls, or be more of a like offensive focal point as far as cutting, setting screens, rolling, whatever it might be. I think he could definitely be more than he is now, and be a good steal if someone was able to get him for fairly cheap, as well as like just dumping like a vet or something that they don't really care about because they're bad right now. Next guy, Christian Wood. So Christian Wood actually like turned down some big deal that the Mavericks offered him. It was like the last day that he was able to take it. I think it was like 4 years, 80 or something like that. And I think that's going to be like a similar thing to Jordan Clarkson declining that huge deal from the Lakers. Or was it Jordan Clarkson? No, Kendrick Nunn or whoever it was. No, it was Dennis Schroeder. That is correct. Yeah. So it could be a similar deal to that, because the CBA is coming in, and Christian Wood thinks that he's going to get some ginormous contract, which $80 million is ginormous to me and probably every single person watching. So I think he could be someone that's moved to maybe move off of him, get another center like similar, because he's just going to walk in free agency if some team is stupid and decides to throw him a bigger bag than that. Now to the Warriors. So there was like a tweet from like Shams or something that the Warriors are shopping Wiseman now, finally, after he hasn't shown that much potential in his development. This is an interesting case. As a Warriors fan, I am kind of hot and cold on this one, because you're always attached to your own draft picks a little bit. Well, I mean, I didn't make it, but your own team's draft picks. And I want to see him be good, and I want to see him be good with the Warriors. I'm scared that they're going to trade him, and then he's going to flourish with some team, whether that's like the Spurs or something, or whatever. But I think he's one of these guys that, if the asking price is right, like some of those guys that I said at the beginning that are likely to be moved for whatever they can get, whether that's a Jakob Poeltl trade with Wiseman, which the money like matches up. I think the Spurs, I think the Spurs would be very inclined to make that deal if it's just like a 1-to-1 swap, or like a 1-to-1 swap with like a second round draft pick or something. Spurs would love to do that, guarantee it. The thing that they probably wouldn't love would be paying him, which I don't think right now he is set up to acquire a large bag from any sort of team. We'll have to see. I think he's probably going to get moved, and if not, I'd rather them just keep him until he either fizzles out and falls out of the league, or is a stud like they want him to be. So now to the Suns. The Suns are a very interesting case. I think they're kind of in a similar situation to like the Heat, where they have a lot of money tied up, and they have like aging point guards that kind of suck right now. I haven't been a huge fan of Chris Paul over the last like 3 years. And this year it's just really showing, because whenever Devin Booker is not on the court for the Suns, they're just absolute dog shit. And the problem with both Kyle Lowry and Chris Paul's contracts and deals is just that their contracts are huge, and they're old as balls, and they're not super efficient anymore, but they can still run an offense and be there defensively and or like run the team a little bit. So the question is, who in the hell is going to trade for them? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't think anyone would. The better question for the Suns, though, is they've been holding on to Jay Crowder forever, and he's been in the news at the beginning of the season all throughout now, and it's just a matter of time for a deal to come across the table that looks good enough for them. The other guy is Cam Johnson. I think he's in the same book of needing to be re-signed. I'm not too sure on that, but he's another guy that is probably more valuable to another team at this point if the Suns can package him with something to maybe get a better power forward. I know there was, or I'm pretty sure there was like John Collins' Suns talk at some point. I think John would fit that role for the Suns pretty well. Now next is the Jazz. The Jazz actually made a report lately that said that every single player on the roster is available except for Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen. It's hilarious to me because I'm such a Rudy Gobert hater, and I don't like hating on players, but Walker Kessler is better than Rudy Gobert right now, and they fleeced the Timberwolves so bad. And I think him and Lowry as a tandem with whatever else they end up getting is going to be pretty good. And it's going to be better than watching Rudy Gobert and whoever else just fail in the playoffs every single year. Because I think they'll just play a more fun brand of basketball. So, I mean, of course, these guys could have been guys that mentioned at the beginning. Of course, the Jordan Clarkson, you know the rest, Mike Conley, all those guys. Get them out the door. Whatever you get back, doesn't matter if it's a couple second-round picks or whatever. Get whatever you can before they just leave in free agency. You know the gist. Okay, and the last guy here is back to the Wizards, and he's another one of these guys that hasn't really shown too much development, and it could be another product of the Wizards of this team that just want to continue to be good even though they suck. And their young players just get buried amongst all these like weird veterans that don't really all like fit super well. They have no like head lead guy that's like carrying the team. They've got like Bradley Beal, of course, but he's been injured. They've got Porzingis, he's been injured. Kyle Kuzma's been balling out of his mind, but they said that he's off the table now, which is interesting because they're going to give him $1 bazillion to stay with them, and they're going to be in a really weird spot. But Denny Avdija, I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but Denny Avdija has just been buried on this team. He hasn't shown the growth as a shooter. He hasn't shown the growth as a passer. I would imagine some team that has, like maybe the Hornets or something that has some of these better vets that the Wizards might be interested in could swap him for the vets, or maybe a vet and a couple second-round picks or whatever the hell you want to give them, or even vice versa. If the Wizards give the Hornets a couple second-round picks for the vet and give them Denny Avdija. Because right now, if he goes into restricted free agency, he's not going to be getting huge contracts thrown at him by any teams. So someone could just re-sign him for pretty cheap. But yeah, I think that's the end of this. I'm gonna throw just a guess out here. I'm gonna say the next guy to get moved, outside of the guys I mentioned right at the beginning. I think it's gonna be a Bulls player, and I think it's gonna be Kobe White. That's a guess I just made up right now, but I'm gonna stick with it for right now. But anyways, so what I mentioned at the beginning, that I haven't been here for a while, it's just life. Life sucks, and you get really busy, and the things that you like to do end up getting pushed aside because life is busy and hard. So everyone keep your heads up. Life will get better. I'm coaching 6th and 7th grade girls basketball and 8th grade boys at this point. We're starting games in about a week, so that's exciting, but this has definitely been pushed aside. I recorded a video, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and just wasn't really happy with it and never went to upload it. So we are where we are. I'm recording this at 3:11 a.m. After work. So I hope that you like it. So like and subscribe if you're still here. And have yourself a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are.